Hey everyone, thank you for your support. I noticed a lot of you who are watching and enjoying the content aren't subscribed yet. If you love spine-chilling stories, creepy encounters, and unexplained mysteries, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. It really helps the channel grow and helps us keep bringing you more of the content you love. And be sure to comment down below where you are tuning in from. I don't know if it was just a fluke or if I had been unlucky enough to somehow get involved in a situation no one should ever have to go through. But it all started with a horrible date and ended with an Uber ride that still makes me double check who I'm getting in the car with. It was a Saturday night, and I had been texting this guy for a while through a dating app. His profile looked pretty promising, charming smile, good sense of humor, and we seemed to have a lot in common. I was a little nervous going into it, but I figured what the heck, I'd give it a shot. We met at Caf downtown, and I swear, from the moment we sat down, it was just off. He didn't look like his pictures, for one, and his vibe? Totally different from what he projected online. He was stiff, overly formal, and I couldn't help but feel like he was trying way too hard to be something he wasn't. But the worst part? It wasn't just the awkward silences or the forced conversation. It was the weird comments he kept making and how he kept asking me about random personal things I'd never shared with him. It was like he had done a deep dive into my life before we even met. At first, I chalked it up to coincidence, but it didn't take long for me to realize that this was no accident. By the end of dinner, I couldn't get out of there fast enough. I made my excuses, pretended I was tired, and told him I had an early morning ahead. He seemed disappointed, but he didn't push. When I got outside and pulled out my phone to call an Uber, I felt a little better knowing the night was finally over. I'd been to that cafe a few times before, and the Uber pickup area was usually pretty straightforward, right by the street. So I requested my ride, stood there for a minute, and waited. The city was buzzing with people coming and going, but I didn't care anymore. I just wanted to get home and forget about that weird evening. A couple of minutes later, my phone buzzed with a notification. Your driver is arriving. I didn't pay much attention to the name or car model. I was tired and not in the mood to check. I looked up as a silver sedan pulled up, a little too close to the curb, but I figured it was just a small parking issue. I walked over and got in the back seat, the usual routine when you're riding solo. The driver turned around and greeted me with a friendly smile. He was older than I expected, probably in his 40s, with slightly graying hair and a gentle, welcoming demeanor. He wasn't much to look at, but there was something about him that felt calming, I guess. He was one of those people that immediately makes you feel like they could talk for hours and you wouldn't mind. He asked how my night had been, and I let out a tired laugh. I briefly mentioned that my date had been a bit of a disaster, but I wasn't looking to go into details. I figured I'd just keep it light and move on. But then, as I sat back, staring out the window, something strange happened. The driver's tone shifted slightly, like he was adjusting how he was speaking, and the next thing he said completely caught me off guard. He chuckled, but it wasn't a happy laugh, more like a knowing one. Then he said, "Yeah, I figured he wouldn't be your type. That's why I picked you up instead." For a second, I didn't even know what to say. I looked up at him, not sure if he was joking or if I heard him wrong. I felt my stomach drop. He couldn't possibly have known anything about my date, right? The car had arrived quickly, and I hadn't been talking to anyone about it. I didn't even mention the guy's name when I ordered the ride. I pulled my phone out of my bag, trying to stay calm, and checked the app. The first thing I noticed was that the car I was in didn't match the one in the app. I'd ordered a black Toyota, but this was a silver sedan, which was a little odd. But that wasn't the most unsettling thing. The real issue. I'd never requested this ride in the first place. The name of the driver didn't match the one in the app either. This guy's name was, well, I'll keep that to myself, but it was definitely not the name of the person I was supposed to be riding with. I felt my heart rate spike, and I could feel panic starting to settle in. I tried not to show it, but inside, I was completely freaking out. I quickly opened my Uber app again, checking every detail. There was no record of me requesting this ride. No confirmation email, no order history. It was like I hadn't even called a car. The app was glitching, or maybe the driver was messing with me. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I quickly typed out a message to my best friend, telling her to keep an eye on me and that something weird was going on. I hit send, hoping she would get it in time if anything went wrong. The driver was still talking, but I couldn't focus on his words. All I could think about was how I had ended up in a car with someone who seemed to know way more about me than I was comfortable with. My brain started racing, and I felt trapped. I tried to think of something to say, some way to get out of this situation, but every time I thought of a response, it felt wrong. The driver, still oblivious to my growing anxiety, casually brought up my date again, as though it was the most normal thing in the world. Yeah, I could tell right away he wasn't your type. You looked uncomfortable the whole time. But don't worry, I'll take care of you. Take care of me? I froze. I didn't respond right away. I just stared at the back of his head. My mind raced, but I couldn't process what was happening. Was he watching me? Had he been following me? I felt nauseous. I wanted to scream, to tell him to pull over, but I was too scared to say anything. Then the car started slowing down, and I realized with a jolt that we weren't on the road I recognized. We were heading into a neighborhood I didn't know. There were no familiar landmarks, no lights, just dark streets and closed houses. My breath quickened. I looked at my phone again, trying to double-check the route, but the GPS was malfunctioning. I had no idea where we were anymore. Where are we going? I finally managed to ask, trying to keep my voice steady. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he just smiled at me through the rearview mirror. Don't worry, he said, his voice soft, almost comforting in a way that made my skin crawl. We're almost there. That was it. Something inside me snapped. I pulled at the door handle, but it wouldn't open. The child locked. Panic spread like wildfire through me, and I scrambled for my phone to call 911. But before I could hit the call button, the driver did something that made my heart skip. He turned around, a dark grin spreading across his face. Relax, he said. I'm not going to hurt you. Just sit back and I'll get you where you need to go. I don't even know how I managed to do it, but I reached over, yanked the door handle again, and this time it popped open. I didn't think. I just jumped out of the car and ran, barefoot, through the street. I didn't stop until I found a streetlight and finally, a house with lights on. I banged on the door, shaking like a leaf, my heart pounding in my ears. I don't know how the driver got away or what he was planning, but I never saw him again. The police said they couldn't do much because he hadn't technically done anything wrong yet. No physical harm, no actual kidnapping. But I didn't care. To this day, I still get this sick feeling in my stomach when I think about that night. The Uber app, the weird driver, the gut feeling that I was being watched the entire time. It still haunts me. And whenever I'm waiting for a ride now, I make damn sure I know exactly who's picking me up before I get in. So I have a story that still gives me chills every time I think about it. It's about something that I thought was weird, but I brushed it off at first. Now looking back, I don't think I'll ever be able to look at dating apps the same way again. It all started a few months ago when I decided to get back into online dating. I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship, and I was kind of curious about what was out there. I downloaded a couple of the bigger dating apps and swiped around, not really expecting much, but just hoping to have some decent conversations and maybe meet a few new people. I didn't really have any expectations, but it was fun scrolling through profiles, liking a few, chatting with others. At least, that's what I thought it would be. It was late one night, around 2 a.m. or so, when I noticed it for the first time. I was scrolling through Tinder, just mindlessly, not really paying attention, when I saw her. A profile I had never seen before, or at least that's what I thought. She was attractive in a way that seemed almost familiar. I wasn't sure. But it wasn't just her looks that caught my eye. It was the name. The name on her profile was the same as someone I'd seen before, maybe a week ago, maybe longer. And that's when I realized this wasn't the first time I had seen her. No, it wasn't even close. I kept swiping, and there she was again. Same name, same pictures, same smile. But this time she was on Bumble, and the weird thing, she wasn't listed in my location or even in the nearby area. Her profile popped up a few miles away, but the app told me she was actually from another city about an hour's drive away. I thought it was a fluke. Maybe she had multiple accounts or something. But I wasn't too bothered by it at first. After all, dating apps can be weird sometimes, right? But it didn't stop there. Over the next few days, I kept seeing her profile again and again. Tinder, Bumble, OkCupid, Hinge. No matter what app I checked, there she was. I couldn't escape it. Same name, same pictures, same smile that seemed to look right through me. It got to the point where I thought maybe I was just going crazy. Maybe she was some kind of bot, a glitch in the system. I decided to test it. I changed the filters on the apps, expanding my location range further and further. At first, I set it to 50 miles, then 100 miles, then 200 miles. The farther I pushed the filter, the more of her profile kept popping up, no matter how far away I was from her original location. It was like she was everywhere. I thought it was some kind of weird coincidence, but deep down, I couldn't ignore the feeling that something wasn't right. By now, I had stopped just swiping past her profile. I started to pay attention to the details. The captions under her photos, her bio, everything. She didn't give a lot of personal info, just generic stuff about her hobbies, her love for hiking and photography, and how much she loved trying new foods. She had a small following, but nothing that stood out as unusual. Still, I felt like I had to know more, so I did what I thought was the next logical step. I tried messaging her. At first, I didn't expect a response. After all, if someone was everywhere on these apps, I figured they probably wouldn't take the time to reply to some random guy, right? But much to my surprise, she replied almost instantly. Her message was short, simple, and to the point. Hey there. It wasn't anything special, but I was already intrigued. I couldn't stop thinking about her. I wanted to know who she was, why I kept seeing her everywhere. I asked her a few casual questions about her hobbies in life. Her responses were kind of vague, but they kept me hooked. And for the next few days, we went back and forth with messages. Nothing too deep, but enough to keep me interested. But the weird thing was, no matter what app I checked, I always saw her there. She would pop up on different apps at different times of the day, sometimes even when I was scrolling through random suggestions. It felt like she was following me, like she knew exactly when I was swiping. That's when I started to get a little more paranoid. I started thinking maybe I was overthinking things. Maybe this was just some weird coincidence, but I couldn't help it. There was something unsettling about her, something that didn't feel right. I decided to try something else. I asked a friend of mine who lived in a completely different state to check out the dating apps in his area. He didn't know about the woman I'd been seeing, but I had to know if she was everywhere or if I was just going crazy. So I had him check out the major apps where he lived. And sure enough, she was there. Same name, same photos. It didn't matter where he checked. No matter how far away he was from my location, she showed up. Now I was seriously freaked out. I had no idea what was going on. I felt like she was following me or maybe stalking me in some way. But how could she be on all these different apps all the time, across multiple cities and even different states? It didn't make sense. She was too consistent, too present. I decided to try something different, something I should have done a long time ago. If she was everywhere, then maybe I should ask her about it directly. I messaged her again, just a simple, joking line to test the waters. I said something like, it's kind of crazy how I keep seeing you pop up on every app. It's like you're everywhere at once. At first, there was no response. I was starting to think maybe she wasn't going to reply, or maybe she thought I was just some weirdo. But then, after a few hours, she finally did reply. Her message was simple, but it sent a cold shiver down my spine. I am. I stared at the message for what felt like an eternity, not sure if I was reading it right. My heart skipped a beat, and I quickly checked her profile again, just to see if I had missed something. But it was the same. Everything was the same. I don't know what I was expecting, but I didn't expect that. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't know what it meant. Was she messing with me? Was she some kind of hacker or someone with too much time on their hands? Or was this something darker? The thing is, I'd never heard from her again after that. I did message her back, and I didn't see her pop up on the apps anymore, not for a while. But even now, months later, I still wonder what that message meant. I can't explain it. I never figured out who she was or why she was everywhere. And honestly, I'm kind of relieved that I didn't get an answer. But every now and then, when I'm swiping through dating apps, I still think about it. The woman who was everywhere, all the time, and I can't help but feel like she's still out there, somewhere, watching. I've always thought of myself as a pretty grounded person, not easily swept up by drama or grand gestures. So when I met this guy on a dating app, I figured it would just be a casual thing. Grab coffee, see if there was a spark. But what happened next? That was nothing like I'd ever imagined. It all started innocently enough. His profile caught my eye because, honestly, he seemed different from the usual guys I'd come across. Not too aggressive, not too cocky, but confident. His picture showed him smiling in different travel spots. Nothing flashy, just someone who seemed genuinely happy with his life. The bio was a little generic, but it wasn't bad. I liked that he didn't come off like he was trying too hard, so I swiped right. We started talking, and things were going well. He was polite, charming, and we had some things in common. It didn't take long for him to suggest we meet up for drinks. I was a little hesitant, but I figured, why not? What's the worst that could happen? So I agreed. The date itself was, well, it was perfect. Too perfect. He showed up exactly on time, dressed well, and we immediately hit it off. We had a great conversation, talked about work, family, some random hobbies, and shared some good laughs. He was everything I thought I wanted, kind, thoughtful, funny. He even paid for everything without hesitation, which was nice, but it felt a little too nice. By the end of the night, he walked me to my car, and as I was about to get in, he kissed me. I wasn't expecting it, but it was sweet, not forceful or weird. In fact, it was a little too perfect. The whole night was. But of course, I brushed that off as me just being overanxious. The next day, things started getting weird. He texted me, not once, but several times. At first, I thought it was sweet. He was clearly interested, and I was flattered, but the more he texted, the more intense it got. He kept telling me how perfect I was, how he felt like he'd known me forever, and how he couldn't wait to see me again. Again, I thought it was nice at first, but then it started feeling overwhelming. After the second date, things escalated fast. We'd only been seeing each other for a couple of weeks, and already he was talking about marriage. Not like, hey, one day, maybe, but more like, when we get married, as though it was a given. At first, I thought he was just joking around, but then it didn't stop. He'd send me texts during the day telling me how lucky he was to have found someone like me. He would drop off flowers at my office or a little gift. Nothing huge, just little things like chocolates or scented candles. At first, I thought it was sweet. It was romantic, right? But then it started feeling weird, too much. I started pulling away. I didn't respond to some of his messages, hoping that he would get the hint. I didn't answer some of his calls, just saying I was busy. But that didn't work. If anything, it made things worse. He started getting more persistent. It was like he couldn't take a step back. Then, things started getting more invasive. I had a night out with some friends, and when I came home, my apartment key was missing. I hadn't used it that day, so I figured maybe I had misplaced it. But the next day, I noticed something off. I had a slight feeling that maybe I was just being paranoid, but I had the nagging feeling that it was him. I wasn't sure how, but somehow, I knew he had been in my apartment. I checked my door. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken locks, nothing that could prove it, but it still felt like someone had been there. Around the same time, my phone started acting up. I would try to block his number, but for some weird reason, my phone would glitch. I would press block, and then nothing. His number would pop back up on my call history as if the block hadn't been set. It didn't matter what I did. I even went to a tech store, but they couldn't figure out what was going on. I tried restarting my phone, reinstalling apps. Nothing worked. Then, one morning, I got a notification. It wasn't a call or a text, but it was a little message from my phone settings. It was a notification that would make my blood run cold. Your emergency contacts have been updated. I stared at the message for a long time, my brain refusing to process what I was seeing. I opened my contacts app, and sure enough, there it was, his name. He had added himself to my emergency contacts. I didn't know how he'd done it, but the fact that it was even possible made my stomach drop. I immediately tried to remove his name, but the app froze. The screen wouldn't respond, and no matter how many times I pressed delete, it wouldn't go away. I had to force close the app and reopen it, but even then, his name was still there. It was like it was permanently embedded in my phone. I started freaking out. I had never given him permission to do that. I hadn't even told him I had an emergency contacts list on my phone. It felt like he was everywhere, like he was in my life in a way that I couldn't escape. After that, things took a darker turn. He started showing up at places I didn't expect. At first, I thought it was just coincidence. He'd be at the coffee shop I usually went to, or I'd run into him when I was at the grocery store. But after a while, I realized it wasn't coincidence. He was watching me. I didn't know how or why, but he was there, always a step behind me. I knew I had to get away from him, but I didn't know how. I tried blocking him again, but the phone issue kept happening. I stopped going to my favorite spots, trying to avoid running into him. But he always seemed to know where I was. He knew when I'd be at the coffee shop, or when I'd be out running errands. It felt like he was everywhere I went. One night, I was at home, sitting on the couch and scrolling through my phone. I was just about to shut off my phone when I saw it, a text from him. At first, I thought it was just a normal message, but then I froze. The message wasn't from him. It was from an unknown number. I clicked on it and opened it. There was no text, just a picture. It was a picture of my front door. I didn't know what to do. My mind was racing. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew who it was. I didn't have to look at the picture twice. I knew exactly where it was taken from. I moved out of my apartment the next day. It wasn't even a question. I couldn't stay there anymore. I couldn't trust my own phone, my own apartment, my own life. I never heard from him again after that, but I still get this feeling, this nagging feeling that he's out there. Maybe he's still watching. Maybe he's moved on to someone else. I don't know. But every time I think about it, I wonder how someone could be so perfect at first and then turn into a complete nightmare. I guess I'll never know. But I've learned one thing for sure. There's no such thing as too perfect. I met him on a dating app. It all started pretty normal, like any other online interaction. His name was Lucas and his profile was, well, just like everyone else's really. He had a few pictures of himself on hikes, a few more with friends, and some generic quotes about being adventurous. His smile was warm, kind of inviting, and he seemed like a down-to-earth guy. We talked for a few days before agreeing to meet in person. I had no major red flags, no gut feeling telling me to run. It was just like any other first date. Awkward at first, but it slowly started to flow. He picked a cozy little coffee shop downtown, and when I walked in, he was already there. He waved from across the room, and I saw him immediately. Tall, with light brown hair and a relaxed posture. He looked just like his photos, nothing out of the ordinary. We talked for hours. It wasn't anything groundbreaking, but there was something easy about the conversation. He asked about my family, my job, my hobbies, the usual first date questions. I didn't think anything was strange, but later, when we got to talking about his past, things started to get off. At least, that's how I felt looking back on it. He mentioned he'd been living in the area for the last couple of years. I asked him where he was from, and he told me he grew up a few hours north of the city. He said his family had moved a lot, so he never really stayed in one place for too long. It made sense. He seemed like the type who liked to go with the flow. As the date continued, there was something odd about how he talked about his past. Not that he was vague, he wasn't. But the way he spoke, like he was trying to avoid talking about anything specific. I shrugged it off at the time. Maybe it was just nerves, or maybe he was the type of person who didn't like to dwell on certain things. The night ended with a hug and a promise to see each other again. I figured I'd heard enough to decide I wanted to give him another shot. He seemed nice, well-mannered, and easy to talk to. What could go wrong? Over the next couple of days, we texted back and forth. We talked about our favorite movies, shared some playlists. It wasn't anything super intense, but it felt natural. We decided to meet up again, and we settled on a park for a walk. It felt good to be getting to know someone new. It was the morning of our second date when I decided to look him up. I don't know why I did it. I hadn't really done much research on him after the first date. I suppose I was curious, maybe a little bored, and just wanted to know more about him before we met again. I wasn't thinking anything strange would pop up. So I Googled his name. The first result that came up wasn't a social media profile or a news article like I expected. It was an obituary. I stared at the screen for a second, thinking it was some mistake. The obituary had his full name, Lucas Hunt, 28 years old, and a photo of him that looked like it had been taken in his mid-20s. It was one of those typical photo from high school kind of pictures, the ones where people look way younger than they actually are now. But the obituary was recent. It had only been posted a few months ago. I felt my heart drop into my stomach. I clicked on the link, hoping it was some weird mistake, hoping it was just a coincidence, but no. The obituary was legit. It talked about how Lucas had passed away in a car accident while driving home after a work trip. The funeral had already been held, and the family had asked for privacy during their mourning. I stared at the screen, completely frozen. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of it all. There had to be some mistake. Maybe it wasn't him. I mean, I was sure there were other people with the same name, right? So I checked his Facebook. Sure enough, there were some older posts from Lucas, family photos, a few pictures with friends. But the most recent post was from years ago. All of it was years ago. I felt sick. My brain was screaming that this couldn't be real, that I was missing something. But what could I possibly be missing? I had to figure this out, so I did what anyone else would do in this situation. I called him. I didn't really know what I was going to ask him, but my curiosity was off the charts. I just needed to hear his voice again, to see if it was really him on the other end of the line. It rang for a while, and just as I was about to hang up, he picked up. The voice on the other side sounded the same, calm, collected, friendly. I wanted to ask him about the obituary. I wanted to demand an explanation, but the words wouldn't come. I was too rattled, too scared. Eventually, we talked about the second date. We confirmed the time and the place, and he told me he was looking forward to it. His voice was as warm as ever, but something about it felt distant, like it wasn't the same person I had spoken to before. I tried to convince myself that I was overthinking it, that I had just come across some odd coincidence. Maybe someone had the same name. Maybe this wasn't the same guy at all. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. When the time came for our second date, I still couldn't bring myself to cancel. I told myself I was just being paranoid. It was just some mistake, right? But it felt different as soon as I saw him. It wasn't that he looked different. He looked exactly the same. The same warm smile, the same easygoing vibe. But something in my gut told me that this wasn't the same person I had met a few days ago. We went to a small park by the river. It was quiet, peaceful. We started walking along the path, talking about the usual things, what we had been up to since the last time we met. But my mind wasn't focused on the conversation. I couldn't stop thinking about that obituary, about the photo, about the name. I had to know for sure. So I confronted him. I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I blurted out that I'd found his obituary online. I asked him about it, tried to keep my voice steady, but I was practically shaking. I didn't know what to expect from him, what his reaction would be. Would he laugh? Would he deny it? Instead, he just looked at me and he smiled. That smile wasn't reassuring, though. It was cold, almost like he was enjoying this weird game. And then he said something that still makes my stomach turn to this day. They got it wrong. I'm still here, for now. It wasn't the way he said it. It wasn't even the words themselves, but something in the way he said it felt so off, so wrong. It sent a chill down my spine. I didn't know what to do. My heart was racing, my breath shallow. I was stuck in this moment of confusion, like I was in a nightmare and I couldn't wake up. I tried to move back, to make an excuse to leave, but he stepped closer. His expression never wavered. At that moment, all I could think about was getting away from him. I turned on my heels and walked quickly toward my car, not daring to look back. I don't know if he followed me or if he stayed where he was. I just needed to get away. I left the park, drove home, and locked every door in my apartment. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't even close my eyes. What had I just experienced? What was I dealing with? It's been a few weeks since that night, and I haven't seen him since. I haven't heard from him either. I'm not sure if he's still around or if I'll ever see him again. But every now and then, when I walk through the streets of the city or take a ride down the highway, I can't help but wonder if I'll see him again. And when I do, I'm not sure what will happen. One night, I matched with a guy named Kyle. He was into hiking, craft beer, and liked movies. Basically, the same stuff everyone's into. He had a pretty cool vibe, and we started chatting right away. We messaged a lot, exchanged the usual "Hey, how are you?" and "What's your favorite type of food?" questions, the kind of stuff you talk about when you're getting to know someone. But then the conversation started getting a little more personal. He told me that he was into architecture and that he had just recently bought a house. It sounded pretty cool. He described it as this old but renovated place with a ton of character and how he loved the space. It sounded like the kind of house you see in one of those home renovation shows on HGTV. Lots of exposed brick, big windows, high ceilings. I was impressed. We kept talking for a few days, and eventually he invited me over to see the house. He said he could show me around, maybe grab some dinner, and just hang out. At first, I was a little hesitant. I didn't know him that well, and I wasn't about to just head over to some guy's house I met on an app. But we had been talking for a while, and everything seemed fine. His messages were friendly, and he seemed pretty genuine, so I said yes. He gave me the address, which was in a neighborhood I didn't know very well. It wasn't a bad area, just kind of quiet. The kind of place where you'd expect old trees lining the streets and houses with big yards. It was a nice enough place, but still, I felt a little unsure. I'm not one of those people who's overly trusting. You never know who's really behind a profile. When I showed up, the house was exactly how he described it. Big, kind of Victorian looking, with dark wood trim and a wide porch. The lawn was well kept, and there were hanging plants on the porch. From the outside, it looked like the perfect home. I was a little impressed, not gonna lie. I rang the doorbell, and he answered almost immediately. He looked just like his pictures, tall, dark hair, a little scruffy, but in a cute way. He gave me a warm smile and welcomed me in. Inside, the house was strange. I don't know how else to put it. It looked perfect, almost too perfect. Everything was spotless. The floors were gleaming, the walls freshly painted, and every piece of furniture was perfectly placed, like someone had just finished staging it for a magazine shoot. There was no clutter, no personal touches, nothing to make it feel like someone actually lived there. It felt more like a showroom than an actual home. I couldn't figure out why, but something about it just felt off. We sat down in the living room, which was nice enough, but again, it was so empty. The walls were bare except for a couple of paintings, ones that looked like they belonged in a hotel lobby, not someone's personal home. Even the couch was a little too perfect, like no one ever sat there. We talked for a while, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The silence was unnerving. Don't get me wrong, I love quiet, but there was something about the way the house was so empty. It wasn't just the lack of personal items. It was more than that. It was as if there was no life in the house at all. The kind of feeling you get when you're in a place that's too clean, too pristine. I kept expecting to hear some noise, a dog barking, music playing in the background, anything, but there was nothing. Kyle seemed normal enough though. He talked about his job, how he was into vintage cars, and how he liked to work on them in his garage. He even invited me to see it, but when I asked where it was, he said it was in the basement and that we could check it out later. I didn't really think much of it at the time. But now that I think back on it, I realize he never actually took me to the garage. It's like he kept steering the conversation away from certain topics. And every time I asked something specific, he would kind of shift the conversation. After a while, I started feeling a little more relaxed. Maybe I was overthinking things. Maybe I just wasn't used to being in someone's home who had such an immaculate place. But the more I thought about it, the more I felt uneasy. We had dinner, just some takeout from a local Thai place, and it was fine. Nothing special, but it was pleasant. We chatted about all kinds of random stuff, And the night went by pretty fast. At some point, he asked if I wanted a tour of the rest of the house. I was up for it. It was huge, after all. He took me upstairs, showing me the bedrooms. They were just as pristine as the rest of the house. The beds were made perfectly, with no sign of ever being slept in. There were no clothes lying around, no toiletries in the bathroom. It felt like a place that was set up for show, not somewhere someone actually lived. Then he showed me the master bedroom. It was the same, huge bed, perfect linens, no personal items. But when I went to sit on the bed, I noticed something strange. There was a weird smell in the room, something faint, but off. It wasn't bad, but it was like the smell of something old, something stale. I couldn't quite place it, but it made me uncomfortable. He must have noticed the way I was acting because he quickly changed the subject and offered me a drink. I accepted, but by this point, I was ready to leave. I felt so out of place in that house, like it wasn't real, like I was in a place that shouldn't exist. I told Kyle that I had to go, and he was perfectly polite about it. No big deal, no hard feelings. He walked me to the door, and I left, thinking that I might be overreacting. I tried to tell myself that maybe I was just being weird, but as soon as I got in my car and started driving home, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The next day, I decided to drive back to the house. I don't know why. I guess I wanted to see it again, to see if I could make sense of everything. But when I got to the address, the house was gone. It wasn't even that it was demolished or anything. It was just gone. The lot where it had been was completely overgrown, filled with weeds and wild shrubs. There was no trace of the house, no foundation, no structure, nothing. Just an abandoned lot. I thought I had gotten the wrong address, so I double-checked. But no, it was the same one. I couldn't believe it. I spent the next few hours trying to figure out what was going on. I drove around the neighborhood, asking people if they knew anything about the house, but no one knew what I was talking about. They all looked at me like I was crazy. I tried to call Kyle, but his number was disconnected. His profile on the dating app was gone too. I searched for him on social media, but there was no trace of him anywhere. It was like he had vanished off the face of the earth. I still don't know what happened. I don't know if the house was ever real or if Kyle was some kind of illusion. But I'll never forget the feeling of walking through that empty, pristine house. I don't know if I'll ever feel comfortable using dating apps again. And every time I see a house for sale or a new listing pop up in a neighborhood, I wonder if it's the same one or if I'm just seeing things. All I know is that I'll never be able to forget the empty house that disappeared. It's crazy how things can change in an instant, how your life can go from perfectly fine to utterly unhinged with just one click. That's exactly what happened to me. One night, while I was scrolling through Tinder out of boredom, I came across a profile that immediately made my heart skip a beat. I don't think I'll ever forget the feeling of seeing that profile pop up on my screen. It was like the air got sucked out of the room. You see, the profile wasn't some random guy or someone new. It was my ex-boyfriend, Jake, the one who had died in a car crash 2 years ago. He was gone, for good. I had gone through all the stages of grief, tried my best to move on, and eventually I did. I'm not going to lie, it was messy, but life went on. Or so I thought. But there he was, his face, his name, everything just like it used to be, staring back at me from my phone screen. My heart dropped, and my hands got cold. I blinked a few times, thinking maybe it was a mistake, that I was just seeing things. But no, there he was, clear as day. I had to do a double take, my mind racing as I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. Was this some sick joke? A scam? Or had someone hijacked his pictures? I don't know what made me click on the profile, but I did. I had to. I stared at the photos for a minute, and the memories came rushing back. The smile he always wore, the way his eyes lit up when he was excited about something. I remembered everything, even down to the smell of his cologne that I could never get out of my clothes. But there was something off about the pictures. The profile was clean, no weird messages or red flags, just the usual bio that was generic enough to blend in with the rest. It was too perfect. I knew it wasn't possible for him to still be alive. I had seen the car crash photos. His family had buried him. He was gone. I had mourned him. I had learned to live without him. So why the hell was I staring at his face again? At first, I told myself I was being paranoid. It had to be a scam, right? Someone had found his photos online and was using them to create a fake account. It seemed so ridiculous, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. So I messaged the profile. Honestly, I don't even know why I did it. Maybe I just wanted to prove it was a fake. Maybe I was hoping for some kind of closure. Or maybe, deep down, I just wanted to hear from him again. I didn't even know what I said, but I'm pretty sure it was something like, "I can't believe it's really you. Are you okay? How is this even possible?" I sent the message and waited. I didn't know what I was expecting. An automated response, a hello, from some stranger using stolen pictures. But not what happened next. The reply came almost instantly. That's when I felt the first real chill run down my spine. The message was simple but bone-chilling. "You moved on so fast, but I never left." I stared at it. For a solid minute, I just stared. My heart started beating faster, and I felt the familiar wave of panic creeping in. I looked around the room, half expecting to see someone standing behind me, like I was being watched. I immediately tried to think of logical explanations. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe someone was just trying to mess with me to get a reaction. That's the only thing that made sense, right? But the more I thought about it, the more it didn't make sense. The message wasn't something a scammer would say, not really. It was too personal, too specific. It felt like him. My hands were shaking when I tried to reply, but I had to. I had to know what the hell was going on. I typed out a response, but I didn't send it. I deleted it a few times. I wanted to ask him everything. How could this be possible? What was happening? I needed answers, but at the same time, I was terrified of the answers I might get. I stared at my phone screen for what felt like hours, but no new messages came in. I tried to shake it off, tell myself I was just overthinking things. Maybe it was just a fluke. So I decided to close the app and put my phone down. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. The next day, I couldn't help myself. I opened Tinder again, half expecting the profile to be gone, but there it was, right at the top of my feed. Same pictures, same name. My heart started racing again. I couldn't understand it. My mind kept replaying the words he had sent me, the way it felt like something was wrong, so wrong. I didn't know how, but I had to figure this out. I tried doing some basic searches, but nothing about the account seemed out of the ordinary. The name, the photos, the bio. It all looked just like his profile when we were together. No hint of anything that screamed scam or fake. It felt like I was looking at a ghost. The urge to message him again was overwhelming. And this time, I didn't hesitate. I just typed, "Why are you doing this?" But before I could hit send, my phone started glitching. It buzzed in my hand, and the screen flickered for a split second. It was as if my phone itself didn't want me to message him. I ignored it and sent the message anyway. This time, the reply came faster than before. I almost didn't want to look, but I had to. The message was almost too brief, too simple. Because I can. I don't even know how to explain what happened next, but everything started to spiral. I tried to block the account. God, I tried everything. But every time I tried to do that, my phone would freeze. The Tinder app would crash. I couldn't even open the app sometimes. Something was wrong, and I didn't know what it was. The worst part, the messages kept coming. Every single time I opened the app, there would be a new one waiting for me, waiting to remind me that he was still here. I couldn't escape it. He wasn't leaving me alone. It felt like I was being haunted, like I was stuck in some weird nightmare where he wouldn't let me go. After the fifth or sixth message, I gave up on the apps entirely. I deleted Tinder, deleted any dating apps I had. I just wanted to forget about it. I tried to pretend like it wasn't happening, but that night I got a new notification. It wasn't from Tinder. It was a message from my phone's contacts. It was a new contact, added without my permission. When I opened it, my heart stopped. It was Jake. His name was there, just like it used to be in my phone. I couldn't make sense of it. How was this happening? Was someone hacking me? Was I losing my mind? I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I kept seeing that profile. His face, smiling back at me like he never left. like he was always there waiting. It's been months now since that night, but I still can't forget it. Every time I open my phone, I keep expecting to see his name pop up, expecting another message from him. I deleted everything I could, his contacts, the dating apps, every trace of him that I could think of. But I can't shake the feeling that he's still out there watching me, waiting for me to let my guard down. I don't know if it was a ghost, a hacker, or something else entirely. But I know one thing. There are some things that should stay gone. Some things that shouldn't come back. I never believed in stuff like dating app horror stories. At least, not until it happened to me. People love to tell these wild, exaggerated stories about dates gone wrong, but honestly, I'd always thought those were just people overreacting or playing up the drama for attention. I had always been pretty careful about who I matched with, making sure to ask the usual questions and check their social media for some verification. But sometimes, no matter how careful you are, something slips through the cracks. And that's exactly what happened to me. It all started on a random Tuesday night when I matched with a girl named Haley on a popular dating app. She was everything I was looking for: smart, funny, good-looking, and her profile seemed genuine. She wasn't posting overly curated photos like some others who clearly just wanted attention. Her photos were natural, and her bio wasn't filled with generic stuff. We hit it off immediately. We started talking about music, movies, travel, and before long, we set up a dinner date. We chose a quiet little Italian place that wasn't too busy. I wasn't in the mood for some trendy, packed restaurant with people trying too hard to look cool. I wanted something chill, where we could actually talk. She agreed, and I was excited. This was the kind of date that I had been hoping for. When I arrived, I saw her standing by the door waiting for me. The moment I saw her, I felt a weird sense of calm wash over me, like I had seen her before. But of course, that didn't make sense. She was a stranger, a cute stranger, but still someone I'd never met in person. I shook it off though, figuring it was just first date nerves. She was even more attractive in person, which always feels nice. I'd had my fair share of weird online dates where the person looked nothing like their pictures, but not with her. She looked exactly like her photos, gorgeous, confident, with a warm smile that made me feel at ease. We were seated at a booth by the window. The restaurant had a cozy vibe, dimly lit with soft music in the background. We ordered a bottle of red wine and began chatting. Everything felt smooth, like we were picking up right where we left off in our messages. There were no awkward silences, no forced conversations. It was easy. She was easy to talk to, and I liked her a lot. But then it started. At first, it was subtle. We were talking about a trip I had taken to Japan a year ago, and she asked about the food there. I was explaining how different the cuisine was from what we had in the States. And then, just for a split second, her eyes seemed to change. It was the weirdest thing. One minute, they were a bright, light green, and the next, just for a flash, they turned dark brown. It was so quick that I thought maybe I was just imagining it. Maybe the lighting was playing tricks on me, or maybe I was tired. I tried to shake it off. It was probably nothing. But as the night went on, I started to notice more and more little things. We were halfway through our meal when her voice deepened for a moment, just enough that it was noticeable. It wasn't a huge change, but it was different. Like it went from this soft, light voice to a slightly lower, more gravelly tone, almost like someone else was speaking. I felt my stomach tighten a little. Was I just being paranoid? Was she tired, maybe? Or was I just reading too much into this? The more I tried to ignore it, the more it started to get under my skin. I couldn't stop looking at her. Her eyes were shifting. Every now and then the color would change, almost imperceptibly, but I could swear it was happening. I tried to focus on the conversation, but my mind kept drifting back to the little inconsistencies in her appearance. Her jawline looked sharper at times, and then it seemed softer a few minutes later. Her lips, one minute they were fuller, then thinner. I had to keep reminding myself that I was probably just overthinking things. After all, I'd been on plenty of first dates where my mind would race, just trying to make sense of everything. But something about this felt different. I told myself that maybe it was just nerves. Maybe she was anxious too, and her body was reacting to that. I wasn't a stranger to those weird little things that happen when you're nervous, like when your voice shakes or you feel out of place. But still, something felt off. She'd smile, and for just a moment, I'd see a flash of something in her expression that didn't belong. A weird glint in her eye, almost like someone else was wearing her face. But then it would disappear, and everything would go back to normal. I excused myself to go to the bathroom, needing a break from whatever the hell was going on in my head. I washed my hands and tried to clear my thoughts, but the unease wouldn't go away. I kept thinking back to the way her eyes had looked, the way her voice had shifted. Was I just tired? Was it the wine? I didn't know. I felt a wave of confusion wash over me as I walked back to the table. When I sat back down, I tried to act normal, but then I noticed something else. Her posture had changed. She was sitting straighter, more confidently than she had before. Like, her shoulders were pulled back. Her back was perfectly aligned, and there was something in the way she looked at me now, something almost too intense. I was starting to get freaked out. Was she messing with me? Was she trying to see if I'd noticed these things? Or was something else going on? I had to ask. I couldn't just sit there and ignore the weirdness anymore. I leaned forward and asked if she was feeling okay, trying to be casual about it. I didn't want to sound like I was accusing her of anything, but I needed to know if she was all right. Maybe she was tired, or maybe something was just off tonight. I mean, everyone has those days, right? She paused for a moment, her eyes shifting again. This time, I could definitely see it. Her pupils dilated, and for a split second, her iris turned a shade darker. Then she smiled, that same warm smile she had when we first met. But something was different about it. I couldn't place it, but I could feel a chill run down my spine. I just need a minute to adjust, she said, laughing lightly. I didn't know what to say. Adjust? What the hell did that even mean? I nodded awkwardly and tried to make sense of everything that was happening. Was she playing some weird game with me? Was she drunk, and this was all in my head? But then the more I watched her, the more I felt like I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just the changes in her appearance, it was her energy too. It was like she wasn't the same person anymore. She wasn't acting like the Haley I'd been talking to for the past few weeks. The playful, charming woman who'd seemed so down to earth at the start of the evening had transformed into someone else entirely. Someone colder, someone I didn't recognize. I looked down at my plate, unable to continue the conversation. My stomach churned. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. She wasn't acting like herself, but I couldn't figure out why. It wasn't like she was being rude or aggressive. It was the opposite. She was still being nice, still being polite, but I could feel something was wrong. Like she was masking something, hiding something deep under the surface. The rest of the dinner went by in a blur. I ate, but I couldn't taste the food anymore. I nodded at the right moments, forced a few smiles, but inside, I was completely freaked out. When the check arrived, I paid quickly, my mind racing, my hands shaking slightly. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to just get up and leave, but I couldn't stay any longer either. We both stood, and as we walked out of the restaurant, I realized she wasn't walking like she had earlier. She moved with this eerie calm, like she knew exactly what was going to happen. It was like she was in control of everything. I couldn't put my finger on it, but there was a feeling in my gut that told me to leave, to run. I walked her to her car, and when I turned to say goodbye, I saw her eyes one last time. They were no longer the green I had first seen, nor the brown from earlier. They were completely black. Her pupils were just dark voids, swallowing the light. And for a second, I saw the tiniest flash of something that wasn't human. I turned and walked away, my legs feeling like they were moving in slow motion. I never heard from Haley again, and I never went back on that dating app. I don't know what happened that night, but I can't stop thinking about it. I've looked into shapeshifters, paranormal stuff, everything. I don't have an answer, but I know one thing for sure. I'm never going on another date again without being way more careful. I don't know what she was, but I know it wasn't her. I used to love scrolling through dating apps before bed. It was almost therapeutic, judging profiles, imagining possibilities, feeling that small rush when you match with someone attractive. That was until last October, when a match on Hinge turned my life into a nightmare I'm still trying to wake up from. His profile caught my attention immediately. Alex stood out from the usual gym selfies and fish pictures. His photos show him on various hiking trails, playing with a gorgeous golden retriever, and laughing with family at what looked like a backyard barbecue. His prompts were thoughtful. He wrote about wanting to find someone to explore hole-in-the-wall restaurants with, sharing his passion for landscape photography, and a funny story about getting lost in Japan. I remember thinking how refreshing it was to see someone put actual effort into their profile. After matching, our conversations flowed naturally. He asked intelligent questions about my marketing career and shared stories about his work as a software engineer. We had similar tastes in music, both loved trying new restaurants, and shared an obsession with finding the perfect cup of coffee. After a week of messaging, we planned to meet at Riverside Coffee, a popular cafe downtown. I remember feeling relieved when he looked exactly like his photos. He arrived wearing dark jeans and a blue button-down shirt that brought out his eyes. We ended up talking for 3 hours straight. He told me about growing up in Seattle, his close relationship with his sister, and his dreams of starting his own tech company. I shared stories about my crazy family, my love for photography, and my recent solo trip to Portugal. He seemed genuinely interested, asking follow-up questions and remembering small details. Over the next 2 weeks, we went on 3 more dates. First, he took me to this intimate Italian restaurant where he'd somehow snagged a corner table, the best seat in the house. The following weekend, we spent Sunday afternoon walking through Patterson Park, sharing stories and stopping to pet dogs. Our 4th date was at a new art gallery opening, where he impressed me with his knowledge of local artists. Everything felt perfect, maybe too perfect. The first odd moment came during our 5th date. We were having coffee, and he casually mentioned liking the little bakery near my apartment, Luna's. I hadn't told him about Luna's. When I mentioned this, he smoothly said he must have seen it on my Instagram. I didn't remember posting about it, but figured he was probably right. Then he brought up the bookstore where I work on my laptop every Wednesday, another place I had mentioned. He knew about the yoga studio I attended, even commenting on how convenient it was to my office. He referenced the plant nursery where I bought my succulents, the farmer's market I visited on Saturdays, even the trail where I went running. My heart started racing as I pieced it together. I went home and dug through my social media. My recent posts showed nothing, but then I found my archived Instagram highlights from months ago. There were casual mentions of these places, buried in stories I posted and forgotten about, stories from before we'd even matched on Hinge. What made it worse was realizing he must have been watching me for weeks, maybe months, before engineering our chance match on Hinge. He'd studied my routines, learned my habits, and crafted his profile to appeal to me. Those similar interests probably weren't coincidences. When I confronted him through text, his response was eerily calm. He admitted to finding my Instagram months ago and said he'd wanted to make sure we would be compatible before matching. He called it thorough research, said it proved how much he cared, mentioned he'd done the same with his previous girlfriends. I blocked him everywhere immediately, deleted Hinge, made all my social media private, and warned my friends, but he already knew too much. The next few months became a blur of anxiety and paranoid checking over my shoulder. He started showing up everywhere, outside my office building, at my grocery store, in my coffee shop. Each time, he acted surprised to see me, like it was just a coincidence. He'd wave and smile as if nothing was wrong. I changed my routine completely. Started driving different routes to work, switched grocery stores, found new coffee shops. But he seemed to always figure out the new places. I'd see his car parked on my street at random hours. He'd send emails from new addresses, always polite, always asking why I was overreacting. The breaking point came during Christmas. I'd gone to my parents' house, 2 hours away from the city. I thought I'd finally have some peace. Then I saw him walking his dog past their house. Their house in a small town he had no reason to be in. He waved at me through the window like it was the most natural thing in the world. I got the restraining order the next day. The police finally took me seriously when I showed them the log I'd kept of every sighting, every new email, every coincidental encounter. They found evidence that he'd installed a tracking app on my phone during our 4th date, when he'd offered to look up the artist we'd been discussing. It's been a year since the restraining order. He violated it once, leaving a letter in my new mailbox about how we were meant to be together. He spent 30 days in jail for that. I haven't seen him since, but sometimes I still feel watched. I've moved to a new city now, changed jobs, rarely post on social media. My therapist says I'm making progress, but I still check my phone for tracking apps weekly, still vary my routine out of habit, still feel my heart race when I see someone who looks like him. The dating app is still deleted. Maybe someday I'll feel safe enough to try again, but for now, the thought makes my stomach turn. Sometimes I think about how normal he seemed at first, how perfect those first few dates felt, how easily he turned my life upside down. I'd like to think I'm pretty tech savvy. I mean, it's not like I'm an expert, but I know my way around a dating app or two. I'd had my fair share of weird interactions, but nothing that really stood out until I came across him. It was a Friday night, and I had just finished a long week of work. I was pretty exhausted, but figured I'd wind down with a few swipes on my favorite dating app. You know, just to see what's out there. There's always some guy trying to show off his gym selfies or brag about his vacation pics. But that night, I came across a profile that actually caught my attention. It wasn't that he was super attractive, but there was something about his bio. He sounded laid back, funny, and a little mysterious, which intrigued me. We matched within minutes. I didn't waste time texting him back. He was friendly, a bit sarcastic, but still polite. His profile showed a guy who seemed like he knew what he wanted. We exchanged a couple of messages, and honestly, I was into it. Later that evening, I was hanging out with my best friend, Kate. We were lounging on the couch, cracking open some wine, and I was telling her about this guy I'd matched with. She was curious, so I pulled up his profile and showed her. But here's where things started to get weird. When Kate opened his profile on her phone, the pictures weren't the same. They weren't even close. The guy in the pictures was completely different. The bio was totally off, too, way more generic. It was like I had matched with a completely different person. My heart skipped a beat. I thought maybe it was some weird glitch, so I had Kate refresh the app. But when she did, the profile was still the same. Different pictures, different name, different city. I didn't know what to think. My mind was racing. I showed Kate my phone again, to make sure we weren't just seeing things. But no, his profile was exactly the same as it had been before. The bio was still there. The pictures were still there. It was the same guy from before, the one I'd matched with. So what the hell was going on? I tried to laugh it off. Maybe it was a mistake or something. You know how dating apps can be sometimes. People messing around with their profiles, changing things just for fun. But deep down, I had this gnawing feeling that something wasn't right. I decided to message him and ask about it. It felt a little awkward, but I just had to. I told him what had happened, that my friend saw a completely different profile when she looked at it. It felt a little strange to even ask, but I figured he'd just brush it off as some kind of glitch or something. Right? I didn't expect the response I got. He replied almost immediately, and it was chilling. He said, "I show people what they want to see. What do you want me to be?" I stared at the message. It didn't make sense. I had to reread it a few times, just to make sure I wasn't misinterpreting it. It felt like he was playing a game, but I couldn't figure out what the rules were. And that was the thing. This wasn't just a random mistake or coincidence. This guy was doing something. He knew something I didn't. Now, I'm not one to overreact, but at this point, I was definitely freaked out. I wanted to just stop talking to him. Block him. Forget about the whole thing. But then I thought about it more. I had been talking to him for hours, and we had some decent conversations. So what was the deal? I asked him again, just trying to get some clarity. What do you mean by that? Why would your profile change like that? His response didn't help. In fact, it made me feel even worse. I told you, I show people what they want to see. I can be anyone you want me to be. Just tell me. Okay, now this was getting seriously weird. Who the hell says something like that? It was almost like he was reading my thoughts, offering me exactly what I wanted to hear, just a little too perfectly. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I felt like I was talking to someone who had way too much control over the situation. I decided to take a break from it all. Maybe I was just overthinking things. I put my phone down and tried to distract myself with something else. But every time I went back to my phone, I found myself staring at that conversation. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was still somehow messing with me, even when I wasn't looking. The next day, I checked the app again just to see if anything had changed. This time, when I opened his profile, everything was different. Again, the pictures were different, the bio was different, even his name had changed. I couldn't believe it. I had to take a screenshot of it this time, just to show Kate. I had to prove to myself that I wasn't imagining this. I showed her the screenshots, and she was just as confused as I was. We both agreed that this guy was definitely messing with me. But what freaked me out more was how smoothly it all seemed to work. It didn't seem like a glitch, and it didn't seem like a mistake. It was deliberate. He was deliberately changing his profile for me, and I had no idea why. I decided to confront him one more time. I had to know what was going on. I asked him, "What's your deal? Why are you doing this?" His response was simple, but it hit me like a ton of bricks. "I told you, I can be whoever you want me to be. I'm just here to make you happy." That was the moment it clicked. He wasn't just changing his profile for fun. He was customizing himself to be exactly what I wanted, not who he really was, just what I wanted. And that thought terrified me more than I can explain. It felt like he was manipulating me, trying to mold himself into whatever I was looking for. But why? I didn't respond to him after that. I deleted the app. I blocked him everywhere I could. I even went as far as to change my own settings to make sure he couldn't find me. But it didn't feel like enough. It felt like there was a part of him still lurking, still able to find me no matter how much I tried to erase him. Weeks went by without hearing from him. I thought maybe he had moved on. Maybe it was just a weird one-off experience. But then last night, I checked my notifications, and there it was, a new message from an unknown number. I almost didn't want to open it, but I did. It was from him. His number wasn't saved in my phone, but the message had his writing style, the same weird vibe I remembered from the app. "I can be whoever you want me to be. I'm just waiting for you to tell me. Don't forget about me." I didn't respond. I won't. But it feels like this is far from over, like he's still out there somewhere watching and waiting. I don't know how he can do this or why he's doing it, but I don't think I'll ever feel safe again. I don't think I'll ever trust a dating app again. And I sure as hell don't think I'll ever be able to shake the feeling that I'm not the one in control. It was a Thursday night when I decided to try something new. I wasn't really expecting much, just a casual date with a guy I met on a dating app. His profile seemed normal enough. Pictures of him at a baseball game, a few traveling shots, and a bio that wasn't cringy or cliche. We had chatted for a few days, and he seemed chill. No red flags, no warning signs, at least none that I noticed at the time. But I should have known. I should have trusted my gut. We met at a local bar, and everything started off fine. He was polite, funny even, but the more we talked, the more I started feeling like something was off. It wasn't anything major, just little things. The way he would lean in too close when speaking, how he kept touching his phone in a way that felt deliberate, as if he was tracking the time or maybe waiting for something. But the real weirdness hit when we got to talking about my hobbies. I mentioned that I loved hiking and being outdoors, and he immediately seemed super interested, almost too interested. He started asking really specific questions about the trails I liked, what times of day I usually went, and where I preferred to go. At first, I brushed it off. He was just trying to be attentive, right? Maybe he was genuinely curious, but the questions kept coming, and they felt more invasive than curious. At some point, I started getting that uncomfortable feeling in the pit of my stomach, the one where your brain is telling you, this is not normal, but you're trying to ignore it because you don't want to be rude. The worst part came when the night started winding down. We were wrapping up our drinks, and he asked if I wanted to go for a walk. I agreed, thinking it would just be a nice way to end the night. But as we stepped outside, he pulled me in a direction I didn't expect, toward a park a few blocks away. I wasn't exactly thrilled, but I didn't want to make a scene. We walked for a while, and as the night grew quieter, it started to feel a little more tense. My phone buzzed, and I checked it to find a message from a friend checking in. I texted her back quickly, but when I looked up, he was standing right behind me, way closer than I had expected. Too close. I like how you're always looking at your phone, he said, his voice almost too smooth, too calm. It was such a strange comment that it caught me off guard. I laughed it off, but something about it just didn't sit right. By the time we reached the park, I felt like I needed to leave. It wasn't that he was doing anything overly aggressive. It was more the subtle feeling that he was constantly watching, constantly analyzing. I politely ended the night soon after, telling him I had to get up early. He seemed fine with it, though I could tell he wasn't thrilled by the abrupt end. He gave me a weird forced smile when I said goodbye. But that's when things took a turn. The next morning, I woke up to a message from him. I had already decided that I wasn't going to pursue anything further, and I figured I'd just ignore it, but curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. It was short, just a good morning. Hope you slept well. I didn't respond, but I did block his number. I wasn't sure why I hadn't done it earlier, but at least now it felt like the right decision. I went about my day, worked, hung out with some friends, and just tried to get the weirdness of the day out of my head. I figured it was just one of those situations that didn't quite click. But then the next day, around noon, I got a message from an unknown number. It said, "Blocking me won't work." I stared at the message for a few seconds, feeling a cold wave of dread wash over me. My heart started beating faster. There was no way this was happening. I went straight to my contacts and checked. His number wasn't there anymore. I'd blocked it, no doubt about it. So how was this even possible? I blocked the number, and then I tried to go about my day, trying to shake off the feeling of unease. I went to lunch with my friend and told her what had happened, but she just brushed it off, thinking it was some weird scam or prank. But then it happened again. Later that evening, I got another text from the same unknown number. I told you, blocking me won't work. This time, my hands were shaking. I immediately checked my phone again, making sure I hadn't missed anything. I went to the block list and found his number there, just as I had left it. So how was he still texting me? Panic set in. I tried everything I could think of, restarting my phone, unblocking the number and blocking it again, turning off notifications. Nothing worked. I'd even tried resetting my entire phone, but no matter what I did, the messages kept coming. Each one more insistent, more unsettling than the last. Then, as if things couldn't get worse, I received a text. This time it was different. It was from my own number. The message read, "I told you." I froze. I don't know how or why, but I knew with complete certainty that this wasn't just some glitch or prank. This guy had done something that went beyond just technology. It felt like he was inside my phone, like he had found a way to breach my privacy in a way that I couldn't understand. I tried everything. I contacted my phone provider, reset all my security settings, changed every password I could think of, even changed my number. It didn't stop. The messages kept coming, every few hours. Sometimes they were from unknown numbers, sometimes from my own number. Sometimes they were just the words, "I told you." Sometimes they were longer, creepy, personalized texts. It didn't matter what I did. He was still there. It's been 2 weeks now, and I haven't left my house much. I don't know what else to do. The messages haven't stopped, and neither have the feelings of being watched. I tried to go to the police, but when I show them the text, they look at me like I'm crazy. I don't feel safe anymore. Not in my own house, not on my phone. It feels like I'm being stalked, but not in the traditional way. It's like he's always there, lurking in the background, watching everything I do. I don't know how he's doing this or why, but I do know one thing for sure. Blocking him didn't work. Nothing I do will make him go away, and it feels like I'm losing control of everything. It all started like any other date. I was just scrolling through Hinge, the usual app for meeting people, and then I stumbled upon his profile. His name was Ryan. Tall, dark hair, charming smile. Everything seemed perfect, like he stepped right out of one of those cheesy rom-coms. The bio was brief but sweet, talking about his love for hiking, dogs, and spontaneous road trips. He seemed normal, too normal, in fact. But I was tired of the same old swiping, and he looked like someone I could get along with. We matched, and within minutes we were texting back and forth. He seemed super easygoing, made me laugh, and actually asked questions about me, not just the usual small talk. We started making plans for a date, and honestly, I was excited. The chemistry was real, even through the text. When we met up for dinner, it was better than I expected. He was as attractive in person as he was in his pictures, and the conversation flowed effortlessly. We talked about everything: work, family, places we traveled, and even our childhood memories. He was engaging, sweet, and funny. I couldn't help but feel that maybe, just maybe, this could be the start of something good. But then, things started feeling a little off. As the night went on, I noticed something strange. He didn't talk much about his past, like, at all. Every time I asked a question about his childhood or past relationships, he would smoothly steer the conversation in another direction. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe he was just a private guy. But then the next day, when we continued texting, it struck me. I'd looked him up on social media, and there was nothing. I tried searching his name on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Nothing. Absolutely no trace of him anywhere. I figured maybe he was just one of those people who didn't care about social media. But the more I thought about it, the stranger it became. In today's world, it's hard to find anyone without at least some kind of online footprint. Even if you don't post a lot, there are usually old photos, mutual friends, or even just mentions of your name in other people's posts. But Ryan? Nothing. Zero. Zilch. I decided to dig a little deeper. It felt weird, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I took one of the photos he had posted on his Hinge profile and ran a reverse image search. The results were immediate, and my stomach dropped when I saw what popped up. The image wasn't his at all. It was listed as a stock photo. A stock image of a guy in a blue shirt, standing on a cliff overlooking the ocean. The website even listed it for sale. I stared at my screen, trying to process what I had just found. I was convinced it was a mistake. There had to be a logical explanation. Maybe he just used a stock photo because he didn't want to put his own pictures out there. But even that felt weird. Who does that? And why wouldn't he just say something about it? I had to know more. So I decided to confront him. I wasn't expecting any crazy answers, but I figured he'd at least give me some kind of explanation, something that would ease my suspicions. I sent him a message saying that I'd been thinking about something, and I needed to ask him a few questions. I didn't accuse him of anything outright, but I did mention the photo situation and how weird it was that I couldn't find any trace of him online. The response came quickly. "Yeah, I was hoping you wouldn't check," he said. I froze. What did that mean? Why was he so calm about it? My heart started to race, and I felt like I was losing control of the situation. I expected some kind of apology or at least an explanation, but instead, he logged out of Hinge completely. His profile disappeared, just like that. 1 second, it was there, and the next, it was gone. I sat there staring at my phone for a few moments, trying to make sense of it. He didn't just delete his account, he logged out, which made it feel intentional. The whole thing felt so calculated. I tried searching for him again. Nothing. Not even the stock image showed up anymore. It was like he had never existed in the first place. That's when the panic set in. I didn't know what to do, so I started reaching out to a few friends for advice. I showed them his profile, the image search results, everything. They'd all thought I was overreacting, but none of them could explain it either. I felt like I was going crazy. I kept telling myself it was all some sort of misunderstanding, that maybe there was an explanation. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was horribly wrong. I deleted my Hinge account and started avoiding all online dating for a while. But I couldn't stop thinking about him. It was like he was haunting me, even though I didn't know him at all. How could someone just disappear like that? How could someone fake an entire existence so perfectly? The strangest part was that the more I thought about it, the more I started doubting my own memory of him. Was his name really Ryan? I tried to recall our conversations, but the details started to blur. The image of him in my mind felt hazy, like it was someone else entirely. It was like my brain was editing him out of existence. I even went back to the stock photo website to see if I could find the image again, but it was gone. The page no longer existed. A few days later, I received a text. It was from a random number I didn't recognize. The message was simple. I was hoping you wouldn't check. It was the same message he'd sent before. I don't know how he got my number. I didn't give him anything, not even my full name. But somehow, he found me again. The message came out of nowhere, just like everything else with him. I immediately blocked the number, but the sense of unease never left me. I couldn't explain any of it, and every time I tried, the answers just didn't make sense. In the end, I had to accept that some things are better left unexplored. Maybe I'll never know the truth about who or what Ryan really was. Maybe he's just a figment of my imagination, a digital ghost, or something much worse. I don't know. But what I do know is that sometimes it's best to leave the mystery unsolved, even if it means living with the unknown. Because there are some things out there that you don't want to dig too deep into. I feel like I need to get it out. I still can't wrap my head around it, but every time I think back to it, I can't shake the feeling that something was off. And honestly, I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust anyone I meet on a dating app again. This all started with a simple swipe, something that happens way too often in today's world. You match, you chat, and maybe, if you're lucky, you meet. That's how I thought things were going to go, at least. But this time, things went in a direction I never could have predicted. So I was swiping, like I always do when I get bored, checking out profiles, sending a few messages, nothing special. Then I came across Connor's profile. I don't know what it was, but something about it stood out to me. He looked exactly like the kind of guy I'd usually go for. Tall, dark hair, sharp jawline, the whole package. He had that mix of approachable and handsome, but there was something else in his eyes that made him look a little intense. At first, I just thought it was my imagination, but something about that stare stayed with me. Still, I decided to swipe right. What's the worst that could happen, right? He messaged me almost immediately after the match, and we started chatting. The conversation flowed naturally at first, just like you'd expect when you click with someone. We talked about the usual things, what we did for work, what we like to do for fun, that sort of thing. Connor seemed really down to earth, funny, and surprisingly open about his life. He was 30, a graphic designer, and had been living in the city for a couple of years. His texts were friendly, casual, and he made me laugh. I could tell that we were kind of on the same wavelength. But after a while, he started to get a little more personal, in a way that made me uncomfortable, but in a subtle way that I couldn't quite put my finger on. He started asking about my past relationships, about what had gone wrong, and I was fine with answering at first. I mean, I guess it's normal for people to want to know about your experiences, right? But as we got deeper into the conversation, it started feeling like he was really invested in my answers, almost like he was waiting for me to say the wrong thing. It wasn't an aggressive thing, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he was reading me too well. One evening, after a couple of weeks of talking, Connor asked me if I wanted to meet up for dinner. We decided on a casual place, not too far from where I lived. When I saw him in person, I was a little taken aback. He looked exactly like his pictures, but there was something in his demeanor that felt off. Like he was too polished, too perfect in the way he held himself. The conversation went well enough at first. We laughed, we joked, and honestly, he seemed like a pretty normal guy. Maybe it was just nerves, but there was a vibe I couldn't shake. The weirdness started happening about halfway through dinner when Connor asked if I wanted to get out of there. He said he had a place in mind where we could hang out, but he didn't want to go into specifics. I was a little confused but agreed. He didn't tell me where we were going, just that it would be more relaxed than the restaurant. I didn't think much of it. Honestly, I was just eager to keep the night going. As we left the restaurant, Connor stopped me before I could get in my car. He told me that he'd be calling a rideshare to take us to his place. I thought that was a little strange, but I didn't think too much of it at the time. It was cold, and honestly, I was feeling a bit of a buzz from the wine. I was in the mood to just relax and see where the night went. When the rideshare showed up, I slid into the backseat, and Connor followed me. But when I looked at him, there was something unsettling about the way he smiled. It wasn't that he looked angry or unkind. It was more like he was hiding something I couldn't quite figure out. He told the driver where to go, and we started driving. The ride wasn't very long, but it felt like time slowed down. The quiet, the dim lighting, and the subtle hum of the car were enough to make me feel on edge. I tried to brush it off and made some small talk, but he was distant, almost distracted. As we neared his place, I looked out the window and realized we were in a part of town I didn't recognize. It was a quiet area, but it didn't feel like the kind of place someone like Connor would live. I had this nagging feeling in the back of my mind, like I should have been paying more attention to my surroundings. But I ignored it, thinking it was just my overactive imagination. When we got out of the car, he led me to a building that looked like a generic apartment complex. But something felt wrong. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, and I was starting to wonder if I had made a mistake by coming here. But Connor was acting so casual, so confident, that I started to second-guess myself. The elevator ride-up was silent, and when we reached his floor, he took me down a long hallway. As we approached the door, I had a sense of déjà vu, a feeling like I'd been here before. But that didn't make sense. I'd never been to this part of town. Still, the feeling stuck with me, and I pushed it aside as we entered his apartment. It was a nice place, but there was something strange about it. It wasn't particularly decorated or homey, just sterile. The walls were bare, the furniture minimal. But what stood out the most was the sense of emptiness, like no one truly lived here. We sat down on the couch, and as we were talking, I could hear something, like a faint whispering noise. I tried to ignore it, but it kept getting louder. Connor was sitting next to me, still talking, but the voices in the background grew more distinct. I couldn't make out the words, but it sounded like there were multiple people talking. Finally, I asked Connor about it, but when I did, he paused for a second. The smile on his face disappeared for a moment, just a flicker of something dark in his eyes. He quickly covered it up and told me he was alone in the apartment, that there was no one else here. I didn't press further, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The voices kept coming from somewhere, but not from the walls, more like they were coming from his pocket. I didn't know what to do. The night had taken a weird turn, and I felt more and more uncomfortable. When I excused myself to use the bathroom, I found something strange. There was a picture on the wall, a wedding photo, but the person in the photo wasn't Connor alone. It was him with a woman, smiling happily, standing in front of what looked like a beach. The date on the frame read June 2023, just 2 months ago. I felt my heart stop in my chest. Was he married? And why was there no mention of this in our conversations? I quickly left the bathroom, my mind racing. I needed answers. But when I came back to the living room, Connor was standing by the door, looking at me with that unsettling smile again. I could barely hold it together as I asked him about the picture. His smile faltered, and in that moment, I knew something was off. He didn't even try to deny it. He just said, "She won't find out if you don't tell." My stomach dropped. The whispers in the background grew louder. I left. I don't know what I was expecting, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had narrowly escaped something much darker than I could comprehend. As I walked back to my car, the world felt different. Everything seemed wrong. I didn't know who Connor really was, and I didn't know how I had gotten so far into this twisted situation without realizing it. I never reached out to him again, and honestly, I don't know what to think about the whispers, or the photo, or why he seemed so sure I wouldn't tell anyone. But I know one thing: I'll never trust a dating app again. Some things are better left unknown. It all started like any other day. I was scrolling through Hinge on my lunch break, bored out of my mind, looking for something to pass the time. That's when I saw his profile. His name was Ethan, and his pictures were, honestly, kind of generic. Just a guy in a button-up shirt with a few artsy outdoor shots sprinkled in. But something about his bio caught my attention. It wasn't the usual looking for a fun time or adventurer-seeking adventure crap. No, it was just this. I know what you're thinking right now. It was strange, a little too confident, but I thought it was funny, kind of cheeky, you know. So I swiped right. Honestly, I wasn't expecting much, but when he matched with me immediately, I felt a little buzz of curiosity. Who was this guy? Our first conversation started off normal enough. He was polite, witty, and seemed to be genuinely interested in getting to know me. The weird part was that he started saying things about me, things I hadn't shared. Like he guessed that I liked iced coffee more than regular hot coffee. That wasn't so weird, right? A lot of people like iced coffee. But then he guessed my favorite brand of coffee, exactly what I drink every day. I laughed it off, thinking he was just making a lucky guess. He followed up by saying, I bet you just went through a pretty rough breakup last year, huh? Probably something to do with miscommunication. I froze. How would he know that? I hadn't posted about it anywhere, and none of my friends had even mentioned it to him. I didn't reply for a minute. Was he just super observant? I wasn't sure, but I figured it was still a coincidence, so I sent back something lighthearted like, you're either psychic or super good at stalking profiles. He didn't respond with a joke, though. Instead, he said, no need to hide it. I know you. You just don't know me yet, but we'll get there. I brushed it off. I mean, people say weird stuff all the time on dating apps, right? Maybe he was just one of those overly confident guys who thought he could win me over by being mysterious. But there was something unsettling about it, something I couldn't put my finger on. Over the next few days, we kept texting, and that's when it started to get even stranger. He started predicting things that hadn't happened yet. It started small at first. He'd text me randomly and say things like, you're going to spill your drink at lunch today. And then later, I would spill my drink. Or, you're going to get a phone call from your sister later tonight. And then my phone would ring with her number on the screen. I tried to shake it off as pure coincidence. But the more it happened, the less comfortable I felt. One night, after we'd been talking for a while, I was on the phone with a friend and I said something like, I don't know if I should go out tonight. I'm not feeling it. Ethan texted me almost immediately after, saying, you're going to cancel your plans and stay home tonight. I can tell. At that point, I wasn't even surprised anymore. I stayed home. And guess what? I did exactly what he said I would. But the weirdest thing was when he started predicting things that hadn't even crossed my mind. And I'm not talking about tiny details either. This one day, he messaged me and said, don't go to work tomorrow. Something's going to happen. You'll be better off staying home. I laughed it off at first. Like, what kind of advice was that? Sure, I'd heard of the gut feeling people talk about, but this felt different. He had been right too many times before, so I started second-guessing myself. Maybe he had some weird inside knowledge. I thought about calling in sick, but then I rolled my eyes. I was overthinking things. I had a meeting, and I wasn't about to skip out on it just because some guy on a dating app was acting weird, so I ignored his message. The next morning, I woke up and headed to work like usual. I didn't think much of it until I got there. The building was on fire. I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw the thick smoke pouring out of the windows of my office building. People were running out of the building, screaming, and the fire trucks were already there, doing their thing. I felt like I was in a daze, like my body was moving, but my brain couldn't catch up. My hands were shaking, and I had this eerie feeling in my stomach, like I knew exactly what was about to happen, and I had somehow failed to stop it. The weirdest part, Ethan's message. It hit me all at once. He had predicted this. Somehow, he knew that something was going to happen that would have kept me from going to work that day. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I called my mom, trying to calm myself down, but she was just as freaked out as I was. You could have been in there, she said. She didn't know about Ethan or the message. I couldn't even begin to explain it to her. How could I? For the rest of the day, I couldn't stop thinking about Ethan. I texted him earlier that morning, telling him I was fine and that I had gone to work anyway. I told him he was probably just being overly cautious, and I brushed it off. But now I was terrified. I didn't know what to think or how to explain any of it. He didn't reply. And then I couldn't find his profile. I searched for him everywhere on the app. Hinge, Instagram, Facebook, all of it. But there was no trace of him. Like he didn't exist anymore. It wasn't just that he unfriended me or deleted his account. It was like he had never been there at all. His messages were still on my phone, but his profile was gone. I even went back to the app to see if I could match with him again, thinking maybe I was just imagining things, but there was no sign of him anywhere. I sat there, feeling completely lost. Had I imagined all of it? Or had Ethan been something else? Was he some kind of psychic? Or was he part of something much darker that I couldn't understand? I've thought about this every day since then. Sometimes I get a feeling that maybe he did know the future, or at least some parts of it. but I still have no idea who he really was or why he wanted to warn me. It's been weeks since that day, and I haven't heard from him again. His account is still gone. No trace, no messages. It's like he disappeared completely. But I still can't shake the feeling that something else is out there, something I don't fully understand. And I'm scared to think about what might happen if I ever run into him again. I'd like to think that I'm a pretty rational person, not given to believing in weird superstitions or anything that seems too out there. So when I matched with a guy named Alex on Hinge, I figured I'd give it a shot. What could go wrong, right? I mean, online dating can be a bit of a crapshoot, but most people are harmless. At first, Alex seemed like any other guy. Nice smile, a bit on the quiet side, but not in a bad way. He didn't try to overwhelm me with too much personal info up front, which I appreciated. We exchanged a few casual texts, nothing too serious. But then things started to get weird. It started small. He guessed my favorite coffee drink after only a couple of messages. Not that big of a deal, right? I mean, it's a pretty safe guess for most people. But the thing was, he guessed it perfectly. A flat white, no sugar. I thought maybe it was just lucky, so I didn't think too much of it. But then the next day, he sent me a message saying, "I bet you're having a stressful day at work today. You're probably staring at your computer screen, wishing you were somewhere else." At first, I laughed. He's just being observant, I told myself. Nothing to see here. Then a few days later, it got weirder. We were texting, and he casually mentioned something about my ex. "I'm guessing you had a pretty rough breakup last year, huh? That's still affecting you a little, isn't it?" I froze. I hadn't mentioned my ex to him. We had talked about random stuff, sure, but I hadn't said anything about that relationship. I didn't even post about it on social media. So how did he know? I brushed it off, thinking maybe he had some way of finding out that I had been in a relationship at some point. People do that all the time, right? Dig into each other's past without asking. But this was different. He knew things. Things that no one could have guessed. Then it got even more unsettling. I was texting with him, and I started to type something when he responded before I sent it. "You're about to say something about how your day is going, but you don't know if it's good or bad yet, right? It's that kind of day." I stopped typing. I stared at my phone. It was exactly what I was about to type, almost word for word, and I hadn't sent it. I hadn't even hit send yet. It freaked me out a little, but I didn't want to be dramatic. Maybe it was just a coincidence, right? Or maybe he was just really good at reading people. Either way, I decided to push past it. But then a few days later, something happened that I couldn't brush off. We were texting, and I mentioned how I was excited about a work project I'd been working on for months. I was talking about how we were finally going to pitch our ideas to the higher-ups the next week. And then, out of nowhere, Alex dropped a bombshell. "Don't go to work tomorrow." I didn't know what to make of it. Don't go to work tomorrow. Like, was he joking? Was it some weird, creepy attempt at being mysterious? I shrugged it off, telling myself it was just a bizarre comment. But the next morning, I got up as usual and headed to my office. My mind was preoccupied with all the stuff I needed to get done. But then, as I walked into the building, something felt off. I can't really explain it. It was like the air was thick, like something was wrong, but I couldn't pinpoint what it was. I pushed the feeling aside and went through my usual routine. But within an hour, the building fire alarm went off. It was chaotic. People rushed to the exits, and there was this overwhelming sense of panic. The entire building had to be evacuated, and I was standing outside in the cold, wondering what the hell had just happened. The fire department showed up quickly, and the fire was contained before it could spread too far. But it was still a huge mess. I couldn't help but think about what Alex had said. "Don't go to work tomorrow." I'd ignored him, of course. Who wouldn't? It sounded like something out of a weird horror movie. But now, it felt like I had dodged something. And it scared the hell out of me. I didn't know what to think about Alex anymore. Was he just really observant, or was there something more to him than met the eye? I started digging into his profile, but it was as if he had erased everything. His pictures were still there, but his bio was gone. His name? Gone. No trace of him at all. I tried searching for him on social media. Nothing. No Instagram, no Facebook, no LinkedIn. It was like he never existed. I'd even asked a couple of my friends if they'd heard of him, but they hadn't. The whole thing left me with an uneasy feeling I couldn't shake. I didn't want to seem like I was overreacting, but everything about Alex seemed off now. I couldn't ignore the fact that he had predicted things that I hadn't shared with him. My coffee preference, my past relationship, even how I was feeling on a random day. But the fire at work? That was different. I didn't text him again. I deleted the app, deleted everything related to him, hoping that would make it all go away. But I couldn't stop thinking about him. Was he a psychic? Or was it something else? I had no answers, and every time I tried to make sense of it, the more confused I became. For weeks, I tried to go on with my life, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I would occasionally check the app, just in case he resurfaced, but nothing. No sign of him anywhere. His profile was completely gone, and I never received any more messages. But the worst part, every time something strange happened in my life, like when I found out I was about to get a promotion, or when I had an argument with a friend, my mind would go back to him, Alex, and I'd wonder if he knew it was going to happen before I did. Maybe I'd never know. Maybe I didn't want to know. But whatever was going on with him, I was certain of one thing. I didn't want any part of it. So, yeah, that's the story. It's weird, right? But I've learned to trust my gut, and my gut says Alex wasn't just some guy I met on a dating app. There's something else there, something I don't fully understand, and I don't think I ever will. All I know is that if anyone ever tells you, don't go to work tomorrow, you might want to listen. I used to laugh at people who said dating apps were dangerous. I thought they were just being dramatic, until last summer, when a simple Hinge match turned my life into a nightmare. I still get anxious every time my phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. It started during a pretty boring week in July. I was mindlessly swiping through Hinge when I matched with Sarah. Her profile looked completely normal. Pictures of her hiking in the Rockies, hanging out with friends at rooftop bars, and playing with her golden retriever. She had witty responses to the prompts, and her profile mentioned she worked in marketing at a well-known tech company. Our initial conversations were great. We bonded over true crime podcasts, shared the same taste in indie music, and both loved trying new restaurants downtown. After about 4 days of messaging through the app, she asked for my number. It seemed natural. We'd been having good conversations, and moving to texting was the logical next step. The first few days of texting were normal. We'd send each other good morning messages, share memes, and talk about our days. But by the end of the first week, I started noticing changes in her texting patterns. She'd send multiple messages if I didn't respond within an hour. During work meetings, I'd come back to find 20+ texts asking where I was and if everything was okay. Things escalated quickly from there. She started texting me throughout the night. I'd wake up to dozens of messages, ranging from random thoughts to lengthy paragraphs about how she felt we had a special connection. When I mentioned having dinner with friends, she wanted every detail: the restaurant name, who exactly I was meeting, what time I'd be home. Remember, we still hadn't even met in person. One Tuesday, during an important client meeting, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. I had 47 messages from her, becoming increasingly frantic because I hadn't responded in 3 hours. That evening, I decided to be honest. I wrote a message explaining that the intensity of our communication was making me uncomfortable and that I needed space. Her response was immediate and overwhelming. She sent paragraph after paragraph about how she couldn't stop thinking about me, how we were meant to be together, and how she'd never felt this way about anyone before. When I didn't respond, the messages became more desperate. She started sending photos of herself crying, claiming she couldn't eat or sleep because of my silence. I finally blocked her number, hoping that would end it. The next morning, I received a text from an unknown number. "I know you blocked me." I blocked that number too. But within hours, another message came from a different number. This continued for days. Every time I blocked one number, she'd text from another. She found every possible way to contact me. My Instagram DMs filled with messages from new accounts. My LinkedIn inbox started getting connection requests with notes attached. She even found my personal email address and created multiple accounts to bypass my filters. What terrified me most was when her messages started including details about my daily life, She knew I got coffee from the daily grind every morning at 8:15. She mentioned seeing my blue Honda parked outside my office building. She knew which gym I went to and when I usually worked out. I started varying my routine, taking different routes to work, and constantly checking if I was being followed. The messages would sometimes stop for a few days, giving me hope that she'd moved on. But they always started again, often more intense than before. She created fake profiles pretending to be potential clients to connect with me on professional networks. My coworkers started receiving connection requests from her too. This situation reached its peak when she somehow got hold of my work email. She started sending messages to my professional account, alternating between apologizing and making vague threats about showing up at my office. I had to involve my HR department, who helped me implement additional security measures and document everything. I began taking screenshots of every message and keeping a log of all contact attempts. On particularly bad days, she would use up to 10 different phone numbers to try to reach me. She created fake social media accounts impersonating mutual connections to try to get me to accept her friend requests. The harassment continued for nearly 3 months. I changed my phone number twice. I moved apartments. I deleted all my social media accounts and created new ones with strict privacy settings. I started using a P.O. box for mail and removed my personal information from every online directory I could find. It finally stopped after I had my lawyer send her a cease and desist letter. The random messages from unknown numbers gradually decreased, though I still get suspicious ones occasionally. I never found out how many of those were actually from her. Now, 8 months later, I've rebuilt my online presence with much stricter privacy settings. I still use a Google Voice number for new contacts and keep my social media locked down. Sometimes, when my phone buzzes with an unknown number, I feel that familiar surge of panic. Even though the harassment has stopped, the anxiety lingers. I never imagined the dating app match could spiral into something so terrifying. What started as a normal conversation turned into months of psychological torture, all from someone I never actually met in person. The experience showed me how vulnerable we all are in this hyper-connected world, where someone can insert themselves into every aspect of your life without ever being physically present. All right, this story still freaks me out every time I think about it. I wasn't really looking for anything serious, just trying to meet new people and maybe have some fun. You know how it is, online dating, the usual. So when I swiped right on Alex, I thought he seemed pretty normal. His profile had the typical stuff. A couple of photos of him on hikes, a witty bio, and a mention of loving dogs. Pretty standard. At first, I wasn't really feeling any sort of connection. We just exchanged small talk like everyone does. What do you do for work? What's your favorite food? The usual. But then things started getting weird. He would casually drop comments about things that he had no way of knowing. For example, one day, he just messaged me out of nowhere and said, "You're probably craving something cold right now, aren't you? I bet you're thinking about a smoothie or something sweet." I didn't respond at first, thinking it was just a weird coincidence. I was sitting in my living room, drinking a smoothie at the time, but that could have been luck. I mean, smoothies are a common thing, right? I brushed it off. Then a few days later, we were talking about something completely random, movies, I think, and Alex sent me this message. "You watched that movie last week, didn't you? The one with the bad ending where the main character dies." It was weird, not because he guessed the movie, but because I had watched that movie just a few days prior. I hadn't posted anything about it, no social media posts or anything, and I didn't mention it to him before. I asked myself how he could have known, but I still shrugged it off. Maybe he was just really good at guessing stuff. But then it started getting creepy. One night, we were texting and he said, "You're not gonna get much sleep tonight, huh? You're thinking about something that happened last year, and it's keeping you up." And yeah, I had been thinking about something that happened last year, this pretty bad breakup I had, but I hadn't told him about it. I didn't even mention it to anyone, to be honest. That whole year was just messy, and I had mostly kept it to myself. I freaked out a little, but it was easy to dismiss. Maybe he had some kind of intuition, or maybe he was just guessing. Who knows, right? But then the real red flags started popping up. It was one evening, just after work. I was feeling pretty good because I had wrapped up a big project, so I was texting Alex, just casually chatting. Then he sent me a message that made me freeze. Don't go to work tomorrow. I remember staring at my phone for what felt like forever. I didn't respond right away because, honestly, I thought it was kind of insane. I just figured he was being weird or messing with me. Maybe he was trying to be mysterious or something. It was a Friday, so I wasn't too worried about it. I was already planning to take a break over the weekend. But the next morning, when I woke up and got ready for work, I couldn't shake the weird feeling in my gut. I kept thinking about his message. Don't go to work tomorrow. I tried to ignore it, figuring it was just a fluke. So I went about my day as usual, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. That is, until I got to the office. When I walked into the building, everything seemed a little off. The air felt thick, and the usual hum of office chatter was strangely quiet. I shrugged it off at first, telling myself I was just being paranoid. I grabbed my coffee, sat at my desk, and started working. Then the fire alarms went off. It wasn't just the usual, hey, someone burned their lunch kind of fire alarm. This was real. People rushed out of the building, screaming and pushing their way toward the exits. I could hear sirens getting closer, and panic filled the air. My heart was pounding in my chest as I made my way out of the building with the rest of the crowd. The fire department arrived soon after, and we were all told to stay far back while they handled it. I later found out that the fire had started in the building's electrical system and could have spread a lot faster. People were evacuated, but it was still a mess. The building wasn't destroyed, but it was enough to completely shut things down for the day. And all I could think about was Alex. Don't go to work tomorrow. How did he know? There was no way he could have predicted that. No way. I was shaken up for the rest of the day, and I didn't text Alex about the fire. I was too freaked out. I decided to ignore him for a while, hoping that if I stopped talking to him, everything would go back to normal. But when I checked my phone later that evening, I saw that he had been texting me nonstop. The messages weren't anything crazy, just random things like, you should take a day off soon, clear your head, or I have a feeling you're going to hear some unexpected news soon. I didn't respond, but my curiosity got the best of me, so I decided to check out his profile again. Maybe I'd find some clue about who he was, something that would explain everything. But when I went on the app, his profile was gone. Completely. No picture, no bio, nothing. I panicked. I tried searching for him on social media, but there was nothing. No Instagram, no Facebook, no LinkedIn, not even an old account under a different name. It was as if he had vanished completely. The more I thought about it, the more I felt like I was losing my mind. There had to be an explanation. Maybe he was just some creepy guy who knew how to manipulate people, or maybe it was all a coincidence. But the fact that he had predicted the fire, that was just too much. I couldn't stop thinking about him, though. I started going through the old messages, trying to make sense of everything. But the more I looked, the more I realized how strange his words had been. It was like he knew things before they happened. The fire was just the tip of the iceberg. I kept remembering little things, how he predicted my mood or guessed the smallest details about my life. It was almost like he was reading my mind. The next day, I deleted the app and made sure to block every trace of him. But I couldn't stop thinking about that weird, eerie feeling that still lingered. Alex had seemed normal at first. Hell, maybe he even seemed too normal. And now, looking back, I'm not so sure that he was just some guy I met on a dating app. I don't know who or what he really was, but I have a feeling that I'll never forget him. And if anyone ever says, don't go to work tomorrow, you might want to listen. Trust me. I used to think those creepy dating stories were made up for attention until I became one. It started last month when my friend Mark wouldn't stop bugging me about being single. He kept going on about his wife's friend who was just my type. After 3 weeks of constant nagging, I caved in. The restaurant was this mid-range Italian place downtown. Nothing fancy, but nice enough for a first date. I got there early, fidgeting with my napkin and checking my watch every few minutes. When Sarah walked in, she looked exactly like the photo Mark had shown me. Long dark hair, well-dressed, attractive. But something about her eyes made me uncomfortable. They were too intense, like she was scanning me. processing every detail. During dinner, I noticed weird things. She mentioned specific details about my life that I hadn't shared. She knew I'd switched from Lay Fitness to Planet Fitness last month. She brought up my recent promotion at work. She even knew about my sister's new baby in Colorado. I tried to brush it off, thinking Mark and his wife must have told her, but the knot in my stomach kept growing. The real red flag came when she casually mentioned Max, my childhood golden retriever. I never posted about him online, and even Mark didn't know about Max. He was from before we met. When I asked how she knew, she just smiled and changed the subject. I made up an excuse about an early meeting and practically ran to my car. That night, my phone started blowing up. Messages from different numbers, all saying similar things. Had such a great time. Can't wait to see you again. You look cute when you're nervous. I blocked each number, but new ones kept coming. Then they got darker. You can't hide from me. We belong together. I'm always watching. By morning, my social media was flooded with follow requests from accounts I didn't recognize. Each profile picture was just slightly out of focus, but I could tell they were all her. I set everything to private and deleted my dating profiles. 3 days after the date, I was at work when my coworker asked who my girlfriend was. Apparently, she'd been standing outside our building for hours, just staring up at my window. I'm on the 12th floor, but somehow she knew exactly where my desk was. Security went to check, but she vanished before they got there. The gym incident really shook me. I was on the treadmill when she appeared out of nowhere, taking the machine right next to me. She acted like it was completely normal, like we planned to meet there. I never told her which gym I went to. I left my workout mid-session, but when I got to my car, she was already in the parking lot, waving at me from her car. Things escalated when she showed up at my parents' house. They lived 2 hours away in a small town, and I'd never mentioned them during our date. She told my mom we were engaged and started sharing detailed stories about our relationship. She knew about my dad's heart surgery last year and my mom's garden club meetings. When my mom called me, confused and concerned, I felt my blood run cold. I started staying at different friends' houses, never telling anyone where I'd be. But somehow, she always found me. Every morning, I'd wake up to messages describing what I'd done the day before, what I was wearing, who I talked to. She knew when I skipped lunch, when I took different routes to work, even when I bought new clothes. The photos started arriving next. Me getting coffee, me at my desk, me asleep in my bed, all taken without my knowledge. Some were clearly shot through my windows, others seemed taken inside my apartment. I changed my locks 3 times, installed security cameras, but nothing helped. She was always one step ahead. When I went to the police, they said they needed more evidence. Then I found a USB drive on my kitchen counter in my locked apartment. It contained hundreds of photos of me going back months before our date. There were videos too, recorded conversations I'd had in my own home. The police finally took it seriously. I did some research and discovered her real identity. Her name wasn't Sarah, it was Rebecca Thorne. She'd done this before to other men in nearby cities. Same pattern. One date, then months of stalking. Some had to move across the country to escape her. Last week, I finally got a restraining order, but it made no difference. Notes kept appearing in my apartment. Distance makes the heart grow fonder. You can't hide forever. We're meant to be together. The worst revelation came yesterday. I was talking to Mark about the whole situation, and he looked confused. He said he'd never set me up on a date. His wife didn't know any Sarah or Rebecca. The number that had texted me pretending to be Mark's wife was fake. The entire setup had been orchestrated by her. I'm in a hotel room now, throwing everything I own into suitcases. My phone hasn't stopped buzzing with messages from new numbers. The last one just came through. Your room has a nice view of the parking lot. Blue looks good on you. I ran out and got as far away as possible. Police found my hotel room empty that night. My suitcases were still there, half packed, but I was gone. What they didn't find was any sign of struggle or forced entry. The security cameras in the hallway mysteriously stopped working for exactly 7 minutes. 3 days later, my car was discovered in a shopping center parking lot 2 states away. The only thing inside was a Polaroid photo of me and Sarah. No, Rebecca. smiling together at what looked like a cabin. On the back, in neat handwriting, finally together. I'm writing this now from somewhere I can't disclose. I managed to escape that night at the hotel, but barely. I saw her coming down the hallway as I was taking out the trash. Pure luck. I ran down the emergency stairs and didn't stop running until I was far away. The police are still looking for Rebecca Thorne, but she's good at disappearing. They found evidence linking her to 5 other missing men across 3 states. All of them started with a blind date. I'm safer now, but I still check over my shoulder everywhere I go. Because the truth is, I don't think she's given up. Sometimes when my phone buzzes with an unknown number, I wonder if she's still watching. So I never thought a dating app would be the thing that ruined my life. I always thought it was harmless, just a way to meet people when you're bored. I'd heard the horror stories, sure, but they felt like they belonged in some weird, creepy corner of the internet. I didn't think it could happen to me, but it did. It all started on a random Tuesday night when I was just scrolling through Tinder like any other night. It was one of those nights where I was kind of over the whole dating scene but still curious. Just swiping mindlessly while watching Netflix. Most of the people on there didn't even seem real. Just a lot of, "Hey, what's up?" and your cute messages that made me roll my eyes. Then I saw his profile. His name was Tyler, and his picture seemed normal enough. A couple of photos at the beach, one with him and his dog, and another from some hiking trip. There wasn't anything particularly special about him, but something about his smile caught my attention. He didn't have a weird, overly perfect Instagram vibe. He just seemed real. We matched almost immediately. I wasn't really in the mood for small talk, but I figured I'd give it a shot. He messaged first, something simple. "Hey, how'd your night going?" It didn't seem too bad, so I responded. We started talking about random stuff, movies, favorite food, what we were doing that night. The usual. He seemed chill. Nothing seemed off about him at all. We kept chatting for a while. I didn't even look at the clock, just lost in the flow of conversation. He was friendly and funny, not pushy or weird like some guys on there can be. It wasn't anything extraordinary, but it was refreshing. At one point, I remember I checked the time. It was already 2 a.m. I should have been asleep, but the conversation was easy, and I was too lazy to get up and shut the app off. The night dragged on like that, casual and relaxed until finally, Tyler asked me if I wanted to call. I hesitated at first, but I figured it'd be okay. I wasn't doing anything, and it's not like I had anything to lose. So I gave him my number. It was stupid, looking back, but it felt safe at the time. He called almost immediately after. I answered the phone with a lazy "hey," expecting to hear his voice, but instead it sounded like my own voice. Just a faint echo of my words, like a recording. I thought I had to be hearing things. "Hello," I said again, confused. But all I heard was my own voice, repeating the same things I just said on the app. "How's your night going? What's your favorite food?" It wasn't an exact match, but it was close enough to send a cold feeling down my spine. It was almost like listening to a conversation I had with myself earlier. I'm not gonna lie, I was weirded out, but I thought maybe it was some glitch or something. Maybe I was just tired, my brain playing tricks on me. But then I heard something else. A whisper. "I like listening to you." I froze. My heart started racing. That wasn't me. That wasn't my voice. It was so faint, but it was there. I wasn't sure what to do. My first instinct was to hang up, but then I thought, maybe I was just being paranoid. Maybe I had just imagined it. I shook it off and tried to play it cool, but the voice came again, this time louder, clearer. "I like listening to you." It sounded like Tyler, but not really. It was different. It was strange. It was like a part of me I didn't recognize. I felt this weird crawling sensation on the back of my neck, but I couldn't hang up. I felt stuck, like I had to know what was going on. My fingers were shaking as I held the phone to my ear. "Tyler?" I asked, trying to sound calm. No answer, just that same soft whisper. It felt like an eternity before he spoke. "Did you like that?" Tyler's voice finally broke through the silence. It sounded normal, but the way he said it, it didn't feel right. Yeah, it's fine," I said, trying to laugh it off. but my stomach was twisting in a way I didn't like. I was about to hang up, but he spoke again, and this time I could hear something in the background, a faint clicking sound. It was too quiet to make sense of, but it was there, like something was happening on his end. Are you sure? Tyler's voice sounded almost amused. I can keep listening if you want. That was it. That was the moment something snapped. I could feel it. My pulse spiked, and I wasn't sure what to do. I was caught in some kind of weird trance, listening to this strange conversation that wasn't even really a conversation anymore. The phone felt like it was growing heavier in my hand. I quickly ended the call and stared at the screen. My thumb hovered over the block button, but something stopped me. I don't know what it was. Curiosity? Stupidity? But I didn't block him. I just sat there in the dark, looking at the app. The words from the conversation still echoing in my mind. I like listening to you. I didn't go to sleep that night. I couldn't. My brain was racing, going over everything that had just happened. Was it some kind of prank? Was he messing with me? But it didn't feel like a joke. It felt wrong. The next day, I woke up to a notification from Tyler. It was just a message. You okay? You seemed a little off last night. I stared at the message, feeling my heart beat faster. I did respond at first. It didn't feel right. Was he watching me? Was he somewhere nearby, just waiting for me to reply? I debated blocking him, but something kept me from doing it. It was like I wanted to confront whatever was happening. I wanted answers. Stupid, right? I sent a message back, asking him why he called, why my voice was on the phone, why it sounded like he was listening to me. The response came almost instantly. Was it that weird? I thought you liked the conversation. The tone of the message seemed innocent, but it didn't feel innocent. I could hear his words, like that voice on the other end of the call. But this time, it felt colder, more like a threat. Something dark behind the words. I thought about it for a while. Then I decided to call him back. This was the moment I realized I had to get to the bottom of this. I couldn't let this weirdness go unresolved. When I called, it rang a few times before he picked up. Hey, Tyler answered casually. I didn't say anything at first. I just listened. The background noise was there again, that clicking sound. It was almost like a soft tapping, repetitive, coming from somewhere close, like someone was fiddling with something or watching. Tyler, I asked, my voice trembling now. What's going on? There was silence. Then the voice came again. I like listening to you. But it wasn't Tyler anymore. It was something else. It wasn't his voice. This voice was lower, almost robotic. But still, it sounded familiar, like it had been around for longer than just the past few minutes. I slammed the phone down, my hands shaking. This time, I didn't hesitate. I blocked him. I deleted my Tinder. I turned off my phone and sat in silence, hoping this would just go away. But it didn't. The next few days were a blur of sleepless nights and random, unexplainable occurrences. At first, I thought maybe I was just losing it, sleep-deprived, overthinking everything. But things started happening that couldn't be explained away. It started with my phone. I'd wake up to strange, unmarked voicemails. Just static. The same clicking sound. That faint whisper of my own voice, but muffled, like it was coming from somewhere far away. One night, I decided to try something. I re-downloaded Tinder just to see. I didn't log in, didn't swipe. I just opened the app and stared at the screen. Then, out of nowhere, a notification popped up. Tyler had messaged me again. This time it wasn't a simple hey, it was a question. Do you want to talk again? I stared at the message, my blood running cold. I never gave him my number again. How did he? I didn't respond. I blocked the account. I didn't care what was happening anymore. I just needed it to stop. But even now, I hear that voice sometimes. It's faint, like a whisper in the back of my mind. When I'm alone in my room at night, I hear it, that soft click. And the words, just barely audible, I like listening to you. I don't know if Tyler is real or if it was all just some twisted game, but I'll never go near a dating app again. The silence is better than hearing that voice again. And it still haunts me. I think about it all the time. What if it's not over? What if it's just waiting to start again?